Machine learning does not happen in a vacuum. It happens within rows and columns of data. So to get started with machine learning, we need to get started with some data. The link to our CSV file is provided. However, I do want to show you how to get it because there are different ways to access CSV files. So this particular file is located within my GitHub pages for the hands-on gradient boosting with XGBoost and scikit-learn text, which is, encouraged as a supplementary text for those of you who like to supplement your learning with reading. So what I can do is if I know the name of the book and I know it's in GitHub, I can actually start typing it in hands-on gradient boosting with XGBoost and scikit-learn, and I can even fit in then, I know I'm looking for the GitHub pages, okay? So it's got its own GitHub page, and there it is, okay? I know it's a lot to type in, but I'm just showing you how you could get it. And then this CSV file, which is the data set I want to use for our first lesson, is in chapter 1 here. So I click on chapter 1, it's the first chapter in the book, bikerentals.csv. Notice it's not bikerentals_clean.csv. We are going to work on cleaning it. So when I click on that, and this actually works for any GitHub page, okay? This is how you can access data via GitHub. If you have a CSV file, you can't get it like this. But if you click View Raw, okay, now you can. So I can actually copy in, okay, this URL right here. It's the raw CSV file. It's linked below. And this is what I'm going to use to access this data file. Now, this is the data, but we're going to look at it in a much friendlier way using pandas. So go ahead and open up a new collaboratory notebook. You can always go to colab.research.google.com, click on New Notebook, or if you're already in there, go to File, New Notebook. Let's go ahead and title this. So this is going to be bike rentals. Let's just call it cleaning. Cleaning bike rentals data. Okay. So first thing you want to do is call out the URL. The way you do that in Python is you put it inside of a string, okay? So I can hit Command V, and there I have it, okay? Now, I want to use pandas, which is Python's data analytics library, to load that. So that's done as follows. You import pandas as PD, okay? And then what you do, you typically call it df for short for data frame. We'll see what that is. And that equals pd.read_csv. I want to put in the URL, okay? And then if it works, what I can do, I can use a method which is df.head, which will show the first 5 rows of the data frame, okay? So go ahead and enter those lines of code. The URL link is provided for you underneath this page, and press Shift-Enter and see what you get. Certainly possible to get an error. I can tell you that my notebook completed is always available in the link. So if you ever have an error that you can't resolve, you can always, for one, pause the video and look carefully at my code, but you can also open my notebook and see the final product. Okay, so here we have the data set. Let's take a look at it. All right. Getting to know your data is always the first step, okay? And you don't want to rush this, and I'll show you why. But let's just see what we got here. So we've got an instance. First of all, on the left, that's an index, okay? This is like the 0th index, the first, and the instance just seemed to be like a count like the index, so it's probably close to worthless. We've got a date. We've got a season, year. It's nice when they're labeled clearly. Month, holiday. Now you see holiday 0. Maybe there's some ones. Often 01 means yes or no. Weekday, working day. Weather is it? No idea what that means. Temperature and a temperature. Now notice that these are not, you could say, They're not like what we're expecting in terms of, that doesn't mean 34 degrees, it's 0.34. So this is normalized data here. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Humidity factor, wind speed, casual registered in C and T. Okay, so when you look at your data, you want to know what the columns mean as well as you can. And to do that, it's always worth looking at the data source. Okay, so what is the data source? The data source is where it comes from. Now, hey, I told you I got this from my GitHub page, but that's not really where it originates. I'm actually taking it from somewhere. And so where does this originate? It is called a bike rentals data set. So if you look for it, let's see if it gives the right link, bike rentals data set. Okay. And yes, the first link is the UCI machine learning repository, which is where it is housed. So this is the original data set. Mine is a slightly modified version that needs some cleaning. It's important to practice that. And this tells you about the data. Okay, this will also be linked for you, but again, I encourage you to shift away from just always finding the link and learning how to find things on your own. Like, does it tell us about the columns? It does. The columns are called attributes, and you can see, like whether is it? I didn't know what that meant. Well, here there's a key and a code, okay, of what it means. And you can see also, I will also just emphasize here that when you're looking at data, it's kind of interesting that these have been numerically categorized as follows, and it does kind of fit because it's going from clear 1 to kind of like perhaps the most challenging to bike in. Okay. I just want to mention that because there are different ways to convert categorical columns into numerical ones, and we'll be taking a look at that a little bit later in this course. So here, I'm not going to go over all of the columns right now. You can take a look at them. Something very important at the end here, I just want to highlight it and we will come back to it. Casual is the count of casual users. Now, it's not clear what that means until you see register is the count of registered users, and then C&T is the count of both of them. Okay, so if we go back to our data set, we want to think about this in terms of machine learning. So when it comes to machine learning, the idea is that we're typically trying to predict one of the columns. The column here that we're probably trying to predict, or maybe the total number of rentals, which would be count. You could try to predict the casual number. Maybe that's a little bit more weather dependent than the registered ones. For instance, maybe registered users are commuters. I'm honestly not sure. So let's just look at a couple other elements that you can do to kind of get to know your data a little bit. Okay, one is df.info. Okay, so enter that with me. Now, note that df, that's what we assign to be the data frame. So if you go back up when we read in this pd.read_CSV, it's reading it in as what's called a data frame. And so data frames have different methods. They're designed for kind of speed and they're also nice to look at, as you can see. And so df.info is actually a nice one that you can use, press Shift Enter to learn about the data. So what this is telling us is that there are only 731 rows, so that's not a lot. That's small in the world of big data. And critically, it's telling us the number of non-null rows. So ideally, these would all be 731, but we can see in here there are certainly some null values. Okay, non-null means there are no null values, but if this is 730 non-null and other columns have 731 non-nulls, there is a null value present in these. And that means nothing's there. There's no data. And this happens a lot in data analytics. There's missing data for a variety of reasons. Okay, it's not always like a mistake. Sometimes you just don't have that information, Give somebody a survey, they don't answer it. You don't know. Okay, and you can see there's a couple other null columns down here. Okay, another important piece is it tells us the type of columns. We'll talk more about this going forward, but we want numerical columns for machine learning. We want floats and ints. Object is not going to work for machine learning. So we're going to need to change the dates, and we'll look at how to do that in a bit as well. So the other thing I want to go over as we're just looking at the data frame in general, is df.describe. So when you do that, if I press Shift Enter here, you know what it's going to do? You run in and find out. Gives you the descriptive statistics. Okay? Descriptive statistics are statistics that describe the data that you have. You can see it gives you the count, which it's the total number of entries in the row, mean, standard deviation, the median. You know, if you want to do some quick statistical analysis, you can compare like the mean and the median and see how they differ. You know, when it comes to like season and year, you know, that's not that interesting. You may wonder again, why is year have values that range from 0 to 1? Well, it's normalized. You can normalize data to convert it between 0 and 1. And what might be a little more interesting to look at in terms of median and mean, maybe the temperatures, right? So you got to scroll back. The mean is up here. Looks like 90s. I can show you another way to find it. I mean, look, I'm showing you a bigger screen so that you can see it, but you can actually access these by column too. You don't have to look at it in terms of like one big chunk. So let me just show you how to do that. To access a column, use df bracket notation, put in a quote, and then I can start typing, see temp, it shows up as an option. And so I can also do .describe on the individual columns. So df temp, that's the individual column, and I can run .describe on it. And you can see now a little more clearly, the mean temperature is about 0.5. And look at that, the median is also about this, so it's really close. That indicates that the temperature is somewhat symmetric, okay? So those are the several things that I like to do when I'm first looking at data. I like to look at the statistics for an overview. I always look at df.info, and I always look at the data, okay? So we'll pause there before we get into next steps.